I beat a man bloody in front of 50 people and destroyed my wife's life with my bare hands. And I'd do it again. But let me start at the beginning, before the blood and broken glass, before the screaming and sirens. Let me tell you about the 12 years I spent building what I thought was a solid marriage, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck. My name is Michael Turner, and I work construction. Not the clean, air-conditioned kind where you wear a hard hat for show and carry a clipboard. I'm talking about real construction, the kind that leaves your hands permanently calloused and your back aching every night. The kind that pays well, enough if you're willing to bleed for it. Rebecca used to love my hands. She'd trace the scars with her fingertips, kiss the calluses, call me her grounded man. That was before she started working at Meridian Marketing, before the promotions and corporate parties, before she decided I wasn't enough anymore. I noticed the change 6 months ago, subtle at first. She stopped asking about my day, started wincing when I came home covered in drywall dust. The woman who once bragged to her friends about her husband, who actually builds things, began introducing me differently. "This is Michael," she'd say, at neighborhood gatherings, pausing just long enough before adding, "He works in construction." The pause grew longer each time. Then came the comments. "You wouldn't understand. It's a marketing thing." That's cute, but the corporate world doesn't work that way. Maybe if you worked in an office, you'd get it. Each word carefully chosen to remind me of my place, beneath her. The house I'd renovated with my own hands, working weekends for 2 years. She started calling it dated. The truck I'd bought cash after landing the Harrison Plaza contract. Embarrassing. The practical solutions I offered to her work problems. Simplistic. I kept working, kept paying for everything she wanted. The designer clothes that appeared in her closet, clothes I'd never seen her wear, the new perfume that didn't smell like my wife anymore, the late nights at the office that left her energized instead of exhausted. Last Thursday, she was sitting at our kitchen table, the one I'd built from reclaimed oak, scrolling through her phone with that new smile she'd developed, the one that never quite reached her eyes when she looked at me. "There's something I want you to come to," she said, sliding an elegant invitation across the table. Gold embossing on cream cardstock. Meridian Marketing Annual Gala. "You should come. It's time everyone met my husband properly." The way she said properly made my jaw clench. Like I was a dog she'd finally trained well enough to show in public, black. "Tie?" I asked, reading the details. She laughed. Not with me, but at me. "Don't worry. We'll get you a rental. Something that fits appropriately." Appropriately. Another loaded word. "When is it?" 2 weeks. Saturday the 15th. She stood, taking her phone but leaving the invitation. "David will be there. You know, my boss I've mentioned? He's dying to meet you. Says he wants to know the man behind the woman." David Ashford. She'd been mentioning him more lately. David thinks this. David says that. David's so insightful about market trends. David who sent her flowers for closing the Morrison account. Flowers she'd hidden in her office at home. "I'll be there," I said. Perfect. She kissed my forehead like I was a child who'd agreed to behave. "This will be good for us, Michael. You'll see." As she walked away, her phone buzzed. She smiled at the screen, a real smile this time, and typed quickly before disappearing upstairs. The invitation sat on my handmade table like a declaration of war. I knew that invitation was a weapon aimed at my heart. I just didn't know she planned to pull the trigger in front of an audience. The rental tux hung in our bedroom closet like a straitjacket waiting for its victim. Rebecca had picked it out herself, insisting on coming with me to the shop, making sure it was appropriate for her world. She'd actually used that word 3 times during the fitting. But I wasn't thinking about the tux that Tuesday night when I heard her laughing in the bathroom. She'd locked the door, something she'd started doing recently, and her voice carried through the old wooden frame I'd never gotten around to replacing. "Trust me, David. It'll be perfect." Her voice was light, playful in a way it hadn't been, with me in months. I'll parade him around like the blue-collar joke he is, and then everyone will understand why I'm making a change. My hand froze on the bedroom doorknob I'd been about to open. No, he won't cause a scene. Michael's too simple for that. He'll probably thank me for including him. She laughed again, and the sound was like grinding glass. It's time to stop pretending this marriage has a future. I backed away from the door, my work boots silent on the carpet she'd insisted we needed. My hands, the ones that had built our deck, fixed our roof, renovated our entire house, clenched into fists. David Ashford, of course. Over the next week, I became someone I didn't recognize. I checked her phone when she showered. I looked through her car when she went jogging. I played the devoted, oblivious husband while gathering evidence like I was building a case. The receipts were easy to find once I started looking. Le Bernardin, $400 for lunch. The St. Regis Hotel Bar, $200 for drinks. Always during work hours, always on our joint credit card. She wasn't even trying to hide it. That's how little she thought of me. Thursday afternoon, I left work early, telling my foreman I had a dental appointment. Instead, I sat in my truck outside Meridian Marketing and waited. At 2 p.m., Rebecca walked out with David Ashford. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, lean, wearing a suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. His hand rested on her lower back as he guided her to his Mercedes. I followed them to the Carlisle Hotel downtown. They didn't even make it. To the elevator before his hands were in her hair, her laugh echoing through the lobby. The doorman looked away, embarrassed. I sat in my truck for 3 hours until they came back out, her makeup freshly applied, his tie slightly askew. That night, she told me about her long strategy meeting, how exhausting it was to be so valuable to the company. I nodded and asked if she wanted me to run her a bath. She kissed my cheek and called me sweet. The worst discovery came Friday. I'd been looking for my good watch, the one Rebecca had bought me for our 10th anniversary, when I found them in her car's glove compartment. Love letters. Actual handwritten letters from David hidden under the insurance papers. My darling Rebecca, soon we won't have to hide. After the gala, after everyone sees what you're leaving behind, we can finally be together properly. You deserve someone who matches your ambition, your sophistication, not someone who's content with manual labor. The way you laugh at his simple view of the world, God, you're delicious when you're cruel. The last one was dated 3 days ago. Everything is arranged for the gala. By the end of the night, he'll be too humiliated to even fight the divorce. Then you're mine, officially and completely. I sat in her Audi, the one I'd bought her for Christmas, holding another man's love letters to my wife, and felt something inside me break. Not break like sadness, break like a dam holding back 12 years of being taken for granted, but I carefully put everything back exactly as I'd found it. I went inside and made dinner, her favorite pasta dish. I listened to her complain about her day, smiled when she mentioned the gala again, and even ironed her dress for her when she asked. "You're being so helpful lately," she said, suspicious for just a moment. "Just want everything to be perfect for your big night," I replied. She wanted to humiliate me in front of her world. I decided to give her exactly what she wanted, and then some. The ballroom at the Meridian Tower was everything Rebecca's world represented, all surface shine and no foundation. Crystal chandeliers threw light across marble floors, and everywhere I looked, people in $1,000 outfits discussed million-dollar deals. Rebecca had insisted on arriving separately. "I need to handle some setup details," she'd said, but I knew better. She wanted her entrance with me to be perfectly timed for maximum impact. She found me at the bar, nursing a beer, they actually had beer, hidden behind the champagne like a guilty secret. She looked stunning in her black dress, the one I'd ironed, and for a moment I remembered the woman I'd married. Then she opened her mouth. "Michael, there you are!" Her voice carried across the room, deliberately loud. "Everyone, this is my husband." She grabbed my arm, her nails digging in just enough to hurt. "Michael works in construction." The way she said it, like she was apologizing for bringing a stray dog to a formal dinner. "Construction? How refreshing," said a woman in pearls. "You must have such interesting stories." "Oh, he does." Rebecca jumped in before I could speak. "Just yesterday, he was trying to explain corporate strategy to me using concrete mixing as a metaphor. Isn't that adorable?" The group laughed. I smiled and played along. "Michael thinks everything can be fixed with a hammer and some elbow grease," Rebecca continued, her hand still gripping my arm. "I keep telling him the business world requires more sophisticated thinking." David appeared then, as if summoned. His handshake was firm, his smile practiced. "The famous Michael. Rebecca talks about you all the time." "Does she?" I met his eyes. "Oh, yes. Your practical approach to things. Very grounding for someone as visionary as Rebecca." He touched her shoulder as he said it, letting his hand linger. The next hour was a masterclass in humiliation. Rebecca dragged me from group to group, each introduction more degrading than the last. She told the story about how I'd suggested she handle a difficult client, like pouring a foundation, steady and level. She mentioned how I'd once shown up to pick her up from work in my dirty work clothes, looking like he'd escaped from a chain gang. David stayed close, adding his own barbs disguised as compliments. "Manual labor must be so satisfying, so uncomplicated. There's something honest about working with your hands instead of your mind." Rebecca needs someone simple in her life to balance all her complexity. They touched constantly, her hand on his arm when she laughed, his fingers brushing her back as they moved through the room. They shared looks over champagne glasses, private smiles at my expense. The other executives played along, their politeness more cutting than outright insults would have been. They spoke slowly to me, explained basic concepts like I was a child, and complimented Rebecca on being so patient with our different worlds. By the time Rebecca made her toast, my jaw ached from forcing smiles. She clinked her glass, waiting for attention. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. This company has given me so much opportunity, growth, and the courage to recognize what I truly deserve." She looked directly at me. "To new beginnings and leaving behind what no longer serves us." The room applauded. David raised his glass to her, his smile promising everything she thought she wanted. A few people glanced at me with pity, finally understanding what they were witnessing. Rebecca leaned in close, her breath hot against my ear. "I'm going to powder my nose. Try not to embarrass yourself while I'm gone." Then, louder, to David. "Would you mind showing me where you put those quarterly reports? I wanted to review them before Monday." He nodded, professional and smooth. "Of course, they're in my office." They walked away together, her hips swaying, his hand finding the small of her back as soon as they thought they were out of sight. A few executives watched them go, then looked at me with a mixture of pity and amusement. I counted to 60, then followed. The executive floor was dim, lit only by emergency lighting and the city lights streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Their voices carried from David's corner office, the door slightly ajar. "God, I can't believe I wasted 12 years with that loser," Rebecca was saying. I could see them through the gap. Her dress hiked up, sitting on his desk, his hands tangled in her hair. "He's so pathetic. He actually thinks this marriage meant something." David laughed, pressing closer to her. "The look on his face tonight was priceless. He has no idea what's coming. By Monday, you'll be single and we can stop hiding." "The simpleton probably thinks I'm actually reviewing reports," Rebecca giggled, wrapping her legs around him. I'd heard enough. It was time to show them both what happens when you push a construction worker too far. I kicked the door so hard, it slammed against the wall, leaving a dent in the plaster. Rebecca shrieked, scrambling off the desk, her dress falling back down. David stumbled backward, his face shifting from surprise to fear in the space of a heartbeat. "Michael," Rebecca started. I didn't let her finish. My fist connected with David's jaw before he could even raise his hands. The sound was wet, brutal. Nothing. Like the movies. He crashed into his achievement awards, sending them scattering across the floor. "Michael, stop!" Rebecca screamed, but I was beyond stopping. The second punch broke David's nose. I felt it crunch under my knuckles, blood exploding. Across his white shirt, splattering Rebecca's black dress. He tried to shield himself, raising his manicured hands, but I grabbed his $2,000 suit and drove my knee into his ribs. "Please," David begged, his voice high and desperate. "Please, I'm sorry. Sorry." He was sorry now. I threw him. Against his desk, the desk where he'd had his hands all over my wife. His computer crashed to the floor. Family photos shattered. He tried to crawl away, leaving bloody handprints on his white carpet, but I grabbed his ankle and dragged him back. "This what you wanted?" I snarled, driving my work boot, the steel-toed ones Rebecca always hated, into his ribs. "To see what I'm really like?" David curled into a ball, sobbing. Blood ran from his nose, his mouth, a cut above his eye. His suit was ruined, torn and stained. This man who'd called my work simple was crying like a child, begging for mercy. I heard voices. In the hallway, people drawn by Rebecca's screaming. "Good, let them all see." "You're going to kill him!" Rebecca shrieked. She tried to grab my arm, but I shoved her away. 12 years, I said, punctuating each word with another kick. 12 years of working myself to the bone for you. The doorway filled with people, executives. In their formal wear, phones out, recording everything. They gasped as I grabbed David by his bloody shirt and hauled him up. "Is this sophisticated enough for you?" I asked Rebecca, then dropped David and let him crumple to the floor, semi-conscious and moaning. I turned to face my wife. She stood there, her designer dress splattered with her lover's blood, her perfect makeup running, her carefully styled hair a mess. The executives behind me were silent, their phones still recording. "You wanted to humiliate me?" I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Now everyone knows who the real is." The word hit like a physical blow. Rebecca flinched, her hand going to her throat. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Someone whispered, "Oh my God!" I grabbed a champagne glass from a side table and threw it at Rebecca's feet. It exploded against the floor, shards mixing with David's blood. "Pack your shit," I said. "You're done. Divorce papers are coming tomorrow." Rebecca's mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. Behind me, David groaned, trying to sit up and failing. Someone in the crowd was calling 911, their voice shaky. Pushed through the crowd of executives, none of them meeting my eyes. They parted like water, their expensive shoes stepping back from my work boots. As I passed, I heard the whispers starting. "That's her husband? She was cheating with David? Did you see? This is going to be everywhere by morning." The elevator ride down was silent except for the classical music playing softly through the speakers. My knuckles were bleeding, David's blood mixing with my own. My rented tux was ruined, but I'd never felt more like myself. Outside, sirens were already approaching. I walked to my truck, my embarrassing truck, and drove away from the Meridian Tower. In the rearview mirror, I could see the red and blue lights arriving. I walked out of that ballroom with my head high and my marriage buried. But Rebecca's real punishment was just beginning. The videos hit social media before I even made it home. Construction worker destroys wife's affair partner at corporate gala went viral within 3 hours. By morning, it had 2 million views. The comments were surprisingly split. Half called me a psycho who belonged in jail. The other half said I was a hero who'd done what any betrayed spouse dreamed of. Someone started a GoFundMe for my legal defense that raised $30,000 in 2 days. Rebecca and David were fired Monday morning. Meridian Marketing released a statement about conduct unbecoming and violation of company moral standards. Their CEO personally apologized for the distressing incident at our annual gala. David spent 2 weeks in the hospital. Shattered orbital bone, 3 broken ribs, severe concussion. His wife served him divorce papers in his hospital bed. She took the kids, the house, and half of everything else. His executive career was over. No company would touch him after the videos. Rebecca's fall was complete. The marketing world is smaller than you'd think, and everyone had seen the videos. The woman covered in her affair partner's blood, exposed as a cheater in front of her entire professional network. She couldn't get an interview anywhere. Her parents, who'd watched the videos in horror, called me to apologize for their daughter's behavior and cut her off completely. I pled down to misdemeanor assault. My lawyer successfully argued extreme emotional distress and provocation. 6 months of community service, teaching carpentry to at-risk youth. The construction community rallied around me. My company gave me a raise. Clients specifically requested me, wanting the guy who stands up for himself. Rebecca left town within a month. Last I heard, she was working retail in Arizona, living in a studio apartment. The woman who'd thought I wasn't sophisticated enough now folded clothes for minimum wage. The house, our house, the one I'd rebuilt with my own hands, is mine, free and clear. She signed it over in the divorce just to make everything go away, faster. I kept everything except her clothes, which I donated to charity. 6 months later, I sleep peacefully in my own bed, run my own contracting business, and my hands, the ones she'd grown to despise, have built me a new life. Sometimes, I get recognized. "Hey, you're that guy from the video." Usually followed by a handshake and "Good for you, man." The construction worker she thought wasn't good enough had proved a simple truth. When you build someone's entire world, you also know exactly how to destroy it, and I'd do it again. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.